the state of New Jersey. And we're so pleased tonight to have hosting our panel discussion none other than Mr. Bob Pickett from KIS KISS Radio.
The #1 show in the metropolitan area. Open mind, ladies and gentlemen.
And the Weekend Review. Please welcome Mr. Bob Pickett.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, very much. I'm delighted to be here with all my good friends. I know everybody up here. We got to tell our ages too, right? Listen, I bring you greetings from Bob Slade and James Mtume, the Cut Man, Peter Noel. They all told me to tell you guys hello and thank you for listening to Open Line and the Weekly Review for the last 22 years. Thank you, thank you. We do appreciate it. Every week we try to deal with issues and information that will affect your lives. I'm particularly happy to be here tonight because where's Sister Rosa? Where is in the back? Boy, she blew, didn't she? Man, let's give her applause. She did an excellent job, and I'm proud to be a long-time supporter of the NAACP, both nationally and locally. I was telling my good friend Sally Carroll back here that when I first came back to Jersey, Ron, and I worked for a little firm called McCarter English. It's a little small firm, about 1,000 people. Okay. And one of the things that I loved about Sally Carroll is that she was an activist president in New York at that point in time. And let's give her a round of applause. Sally Carroll. I call her our warrior sister. Yes. Come on, let's give it to her, ladies and gentlemen. Right here in New York. Right in New York. Not only did she have a job for the state of New Jersey that was taxing, she was on the parole board, but she led the NAACP for so long and provided that quality leadership that we needed. That we stand on your shoulders and we stand on the shoulders of people who are no longer with us. There's an interesting factoid that I want to share with you, and it has a New Jersey connection. All of you will be very interested. The NAACP was founded in 1909, the Niagara movement, and much of our progress is related to the efforts of the NAACP. That's the reality of the situation. Not until the mid-30s, and especially in the late 40s, did the NAACP fashion a strategy to deal with school segregation. And part of that plan and part of the leadership was obviously Thurgood Marshall. But there was a gentleman from New Jersey who was a part of that. Now, a lot of folks don't know that. He was born in East Orange, lived in Newark in the East Orange area. His name was Robert Carter. Yeah. Oh, y'all heard of him? Oh, yeah. He was one of the baddest lawyers that I had the honor to know, to meet for several years. He was actively involved in Brown versus Board of Education, which came about in 1954. Oh, yeah. Okay? And that changed America. And I have to say this with a small c, changed America. Because Robert Carter, Thurgood Marshall, they created the opportunities for my generation of kids and students to go to the best schools, the best colleges, the best law schools, to work for the best firms. Without them, I would not be here standing before you, talking to you. There would not be an Open Line. There would not be a Weekend Review for the last 22 years. So we need to congratulate those brothers for what they did. This is how this is going to work tonight. All right, we're going to be on the radio. In fact, I need somebody to play James Mtume. If you know that reference, James Mtume is my polar opposite. All right, I love the brother, we get along well. But I think that's what creates the excitement about the show. Right. Because we don't preach from the same pulpit at all. Right. Wow. And we disagree. But when we disagree, we're not disagreeable. And we really have to learn how to do that. Sometimes it's difficult for the black community to do that, okay? Because we all think that we got to be on the same side. But you know what comes out of disagreement? A positive resolution comes out of disagreement. And that's what we do every week for the last 22 years. We've been giving you different perspectives and different views, and that's why we're the #1 show, and that's why we have 2 million people listening to us every week, and we honor that. But this is how we're going to do this. We're going to have a real back and forth discussion. We got some serious folks here who are engaged on the issues, and we're going to open up to allow you to give us your point of view as well. It's like, this is the radio show, and we're going to hit the button for the audience to talk, okay? And you're going to be on open line. So what I'd like to do is to start that discussion by talking about, do you really believe with the election of Barack Obama, our good president, that we are in a post-racial environment? You know, a lot of folks would tell you, especially if you tune to Fox and listen to Hannity, or you tune in to Russ, as my good brother Bob Slay says, Russ Bimba. If you tune into these people, they will tell you that we're in a post-racial America where color does not matter. The reality is, color still matters. It still matters. Right, guys? Right? And that's why the life and the struggle and the continued existence of the NAACP is so vitally important to our community, because race is still an issue in this country.
Oh yeah.
So my question to the panelists is this: what do you see the role of the NAACP as we move in through 2012 and we head toward the election and beyond? What role do you see for the NAACP in what some people are calling a post-racial America? Reverend Jackson.
Reverend Reginald Jackson, Black Ministers Council. With the election of Barack Obama, I think we've turned an era. It was that racism was subtle. With the election of Barack Obama, racism is no longer subtle.
That's right.
It is clear, it is open. No president in the history of this country has been as disrespected as the president. And my concern is the president is in a position where he can't respond to it. But I think groups like the NAACP and ministers and others, we need to say publicly what the president cannot say. I thought it was extremely interesting that a couple of years ago, former President Jimmy Carter spoke out and said exactly that it was racism. And he almost took his head off. My disappointment was the black community then should have stood with Jimmy Carter and spoke to whatever issue it is. So I think the challenge for us, and this is going to be, I believe, the most destructive and negative election we've had in my lifetime. I think it's important that we not only deal with voter registration, but also voter education. And we need to prepare now so that we can fight those forces, whether it's Lush Bimbaugh or Crazy Hannity, whoever it is, because unfortunately the right wing, they have talk radio and everything else. The black community, we've got to become vocal, and I think the church has got to be vocal, and we need to stand up and do what we need to do to see that we continue to fight racism, which I believe is worse today than it was 20 years ago.
First of all, let me say,
The folks in the back are having trouble seeing the panelists, so would it be fair to ask the panelists to stand as they...
Yes, everyone in the back, you having difficulty seeing them? Okay, if you would be kind enough to stand. If you'd be kind enough to stand.
first of all, good evening, everyone. Come on, I want us to celebrate the fact that we are all here tonight. Come on, put your hands together. I just want to celebrate the fact that we are all here tonight. But let me just say this. I think one of the key things we have to do is think that there is a need for us to find our voice. And upon finding our voice, I think we need to come together and unify. I think that there is a ton of dysfunctionality within the context of the Black voice. And I believe that one of the things we need to do is be very clear that the enemy is not here. The enemy is out there with other individuals who are fighting against our people and don't want us to have economic empowerment. That's one thing. The second thing is this. I think the NAACP can also partner with the churches and vice versa, like my brother was saying. We have some serious issues in our families. The family, my mic is on. It is important that we focus on the real problem that exists. Our families are weak. Let me say that again. All right. Let me say this again. Our families are weak.
Yes, yes.
Until we really treat the issue of the family. The NAACP can only be strong when families are strong. When families are strong, the NAACP is strong. And let me just say this very quickly. There's a lady here tonight. When I went into New York 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Hazel Duke took me under her wing. Hazel Duke took me under her wing. Percy Sutton took me under his wing. Charlie Rangel took me under his wing. David Dinkins took me under his wing. And they did for me what our folks down south used to do for each other. And that is, they came together to help a young Black guy who was trying to make it in New York City. And until we build up young people, I look around here tonight, and don't get it twisted. I'm critical of anybody who is seasoned with a whole ton of wisdom. But I don't see many young people in here tonight. Stand up, sweetheart. That's right. And I'm finished on this. All right, on this. But until we build from within, it'll be difficult for us to indeed run the race.
Reverend Jefferson, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Reva Foster, and I'm from Willingboro, New Jersey. I happen to be the president of Willingboro and vicinity, and also the vice president of New Jersey Black Issues Convention. I been thinking about the question, and my feeling is that we really need to wake up our community. I don't know if it's an alarm clock that needs to go off, but our community, to me, appears to be asleep. It appears to be asleep. We wake up in a little daze when it's time to vote. Okay? But then after the election is over, we go back to sleep. We should be awake all the time. Why? Because we are the generation that understand what happened before. The future generation, if it's not us, who would it be? We are the ones that need to educate our young about everything that happened from slavery, from Jim Crow, from segregation, through the charter schools now and the purpose behind all of that, and the prison reforms that's not taking place. We need to educate them about all of these things. Why? Because they are asleep and don't realize it. We're asleep and we know what happened, so it's time for us to wake up. And the NAACP is a part of that. But because we are part of that, sometimes it's difficult because we get tired. We can't get tired now because we're the only ones that know the history, and it's up to us to do what is necessary. So that's what I feel we need to be doing.
Thank you very, very much. This is the Honorable Mildred Crump. She's the City Council person with the City of York. Mildred.
Thank you so much, Bob. It's really great to be here tonight. I just stepped off of a plane so that I could be here, and now I really know why. Because we're about serious business, and that's the place I want to be in. I'm tired of fluff. You know, I'm tired of the nonsense. I'm tired of the superficial roles and attitudes that we take. So I'm accepting Reverend Brock's call to action and ready to, as the president said, fired up and ready to go again. So I have an advantage that, let me do a quick protocol, please, if I may. Let me thank my husband's dear friend, George Gore, for inviting me to be a part of this panel. I have great respect for him, and I certainly want to acknowledge him for thinking that I had something to offer. I have an advantage that I think no one else in this room has. Number one, I was born and reared in Detroit, Michigan. Number two, my home pastor was the Reverend Frederick G. Sampson. Number three, he understood that government, the NAACP, CORE, all of the civil rights organizations needed to be working with the church, not against the church. So I grew up in that atmosphere. When I came to Newark, I was in culture shock. Was I not, Reverend? I'm sorry, Bishop. Was I not? And I couldn't understand why we were not working hand in glove. The good news is that I am beginning to see the seam being sewn together once again, as it was in the past. So, to go back to the question, which is really a tricky question, what does the NAACP offer in what is now being deemed a post-racial era? Many years ago, and I don't know if any of you read this book, it was written by a white man, and the book was entitled Black Like Me. And the book was written by this man because he wanted to find out what it was like to be black. And as the story unfolds, incident after incident after incident, he colored his skin, occurred, and the thought was, that's racism. That's racism. It could be me. We're still at that point. In fact, I don't listen anymore to Fox 5. We need to boycott that station. You know, we need to give them the boot and say no more. I know we need to know everything that's going on, but we need to take dollars out of their pocket by not upping their rating numbers. And so, but the trickiness in the question is us. When the first time somebody said that was post-racial, how many of you burst out laughing? I know I did. Because if you're alive and well, you know that racism is alive and well. All you have to do is get up, walk out your door, and you meet it face to face. So, herein the trickiness in the question is that we don't want to be what we are. They can't see what I'm pointing to the color of my skin. We don't want to be. We think we have risen above, that we are no longer connected to it. As Reva said, we slept. We slept. The good news, and taking my seat on this, is that it looks like the sleeping giant is beginning to wake up.
One of my heroes, the great Mr. Senator Ron Rice.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Encouraging to those who are assembled here, giving honor to God, who is my strength, my Redeemer, one who I know protects me. And believe me, I need protection. I do believe, as Reverend Brock said in Howard Power, let me just preface my remarks to say, number one, I'm not here to offend anyone. And maybe I'm the wrong one to be called to be here tonight. But when I hear African American leadership talk about this post-racial piece, it bothers me. I am the chairman of the New Jersey Legislative Black Caucus here. We have 17 members now. What can NAACP do? Do what James Harris, the president of New Jersey, has been doing. Call black elected officials and other community leaders, including clergy, out. Until we call out the leadership in our community that continue to confuse our people. That's where our problem is with the younger generation. People in my generation, whether we've been touched by the good Lord, whether we become community activists, whether we become elected officials, community leaders, cannot confuse me coming from the South to Newark, New Jersey in 1955, the second week in January, when Brown versus Board of Education occurred right there in 1954, and I left a segregated school, and white cops were slapping my mother because she was so light, and we had to go in the back of buses and all over the place. We have forgotten our history of struggle, not just the movement in the 50s and the 60s. A lot of black elected officials in this country only became elected officials because of the NAACP and our mission on civil rights, justice, and equality. I get offended when black folks, from the authority of black elected officials, don't understand in this country the attack on organized labor. That's how we get our benefits. That's what protects us when we get jobs. I have a problem when black elected officials and clergy and community leaders try to convince us that the privatization of public education is something we should be supporting. Rather than talking about how we're going to fix the schools that we already have. We don't have those conversations, not even among ourselves. And the one thing that the NAACP in New Jersey did that others should be doing, the New Jersey Legislative Black Caucus came together under my leadership with the leadership of the Black Issues Convention, started by Assemblyman Donald Tucker going back years ago and existing 30 plus years. Now the leadership of Reba and then Elise Evans. We came together as civil rights organization with the New Jersey, North Jersey Committee of Black Churchmen and other partners throughout the state of New Jersey. Because we recognize not one black elected official speak for all of us, not one clergy speak for all the clergy, and not one community leader speak for all of us. I may be the wrong person to have here, because I know there was a time when black folks came here on slave boats against their will. And we have built this country. And that's why we have a president today. But people realize that they ever educated those black folks that they call property, that maybe one day we'll be free. And now folks recognize that we are free, and we can be president, and we can run corporations, and we can do anything anyone else do. And smarter than most of them, they want to take away education under the auspices of helping us. I'm going to sit down on this. I'm going to sit down on this. You can tell me that Congress of New Jersey public education system cannot work. It can't work if the state of New Jersey controls it, and you have 7 presidents since they took it over. Superintendents. You can't tell me that the city of Newark cannot work when the state runs the system. Those of you from NAACP and elsewhere from outside New Jersey, let me explain something to you. When you read about our kids in Newark, we don't run our system.
That's right.
We have taxation in the school system without representation. And we got black clergy people who support that. And we got black elected officials who support that. Because of those hedge fund dollars. We need to stop something out, and you need to call us out.
Mind them, right over here. Thank you very much. I do this on the regular too.
I'm going to talk about this charter school issue. Rosemary Longa from NAACP and a national organization of now, and also I belong to the AAUW. I know that there are 2 or 3
Take your time.
Universities who have made,
You're nervous. Take your time. Take your time.
they made
a big issue about the charter schools and studies. One was Stanford University, one of them was a Northern university, and I forget, and then there was another one from the Midwest. So there's three universities that big studies. And what they found is that no charter school in any state, okay, did better than the public schools.
Okay.
And I'm wondering, since these studies were done maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, I'm wondering if there's some other studies and if we can challenge these charter schools, because this is my take on this. As someone who was educated in the Catholic school, I can tell you that the education was much inferior to the public school, because my mother took my brothers and I out of the Catholic school system and put us in public school. Thank God. I got such a better education. And these charter schools are terrible.
The reality,
You really should,
in
you really
response,
should know,
Hazel,
you really should know your history. Elaine Harrington, president of the New Jersey State Congress, and Hazel Dukes took to the National Convention a resolution that was passed. What we have is what Brother Jefferson said. We're not a family. We had NAACPers fighting us. You don't know about it, you just came into the state. Telling you history about NAACP and what the brother said. We had NAACP presidents going opening charter schools. Now, I have three lawsuits in New York City, backed by the National Association. What they've just done, we have the black man who's the poster child. His name is Jeff Kennedy. Making $500,000 a year. You got to know your history. That's what the man tried to tell you.
I know it all.
Okay? They are using people look like you and me to sell these lies. Public school can be good, can be great and better. But again, parents got to own their households.
Absolutely.
Parents got to go to PTA meetings. Parents, when I said parents, I'm talking about us. Every black and brown child belong to us.
Yes.
We got to stand up. We have school board meetings, school budget, and nobody look like us or them but one or two of us. It's the mandate of NAACP to do that. So know your history, and it's not about charter school, it's about us.
Just say that again.
That's right.
No, I gotta say it. What Mother just said, what Mother Dukes just said, we can disagree, but we don't have to destroy our families. We are a family in here. We can have different points of view, but we don't have to slit each other's throats. Our young people take their lead from us. We can disagree. You know, when I used to disagree down south, we kind of duked it out. Young people now, when they disagree, they draw a gun. Be careful about how you disagree in the face of young people. We might disagree on different methods how to get there, but we all want to get to the same place, and that is to make sure that we leave nobody behind. So let's not destroy each other.
No doubt about it. One thing, ladies and gentlemen, just if you allow me.
Anthony Jackson from Philadelphia, and I would say that rather than post-racial, we are living in a second Reconstruction. Reconstruction being when the Northern Army left the South, Jim Crow came down like a hammer. In Philadelphia, we're dealing with hotels that blatantly just don't rent to black people for black events. We're dealing with labor unions that blatantly don't allow the black skilled workers to work. And this is all very, very blatant. So I think that to talk about a post-racial America is way off base, and we should be talking about a second Reconstruction.
Excellent point. Anybody over here?
Behind you. Behind you.
Okay, yes, Roy. State your full name.
My name is Roy Breckenridge. This is a great meeting. All the people that are on the diocese, Bob Pickett, we need to start talking about our togetherness. Do you know what it takes to put something together like this? And we are talking about race. It ain't but one race.
That's right.
Where are we getting off on these tangents about race? Look at us. We're together. We just need to sit down at the table like they're doing and discuss these matters and be honest with each other. Go get Claude Alexander's book. If you haven't heard about it, he says if people are not doing what they're supposed to be in their offices, vote them out. Why do you keep voting these people in and you know they're not doing it? It's only one race.
All right, Roy, thank you very much. I just wish the other side had that same thought. Yeah, right. You know? Let me say, hold on one second.
Bob, right here.
Thank you very much.
I'm new to this, and
We're gonna stick on the topic, right?
exactly, yes. I heard it said that the family is, that our families are weak. I believe I heard that said today. And I think that important to our families, having read a book recently about, also by a woman named Alexander, no relation to your Alexander.
Michelle
Alexander. And what she points out, and has been stated, and we all know, I've heard Attorney General Holder say this, blacks, Americans are 12.4% of the population. We are they constitute 50% of the inmates of the prisons. And in her book, she points out how that is the major cause of poverty in the black community. And I know that I grew up in the 50s in New York City, and people were coming up from the South, my parents were coming up from Puerto Rico, everybody would clear out New York to go to their grandparents down south of PR. But everybody had a mother and a father. That is not so today. That our male kids to get into gangs. That causes, women to have low income, kids not to have health insurance because there's no. So I think that we have to address and that's how you see the color blindness. Hey, the prisons are predominantly black, disproportionately black, and we are a minority in this country. The Jim Crow is very much alive.
Right, the book is called
Jim Crow. Mass incarceration.
Thank you very much. In fact, we had her on the show about a month and a half ago. She was a great guest. Let's go. I promised this gentleman right here, and we'll do that.
Your name, please? My name's Richard Smith. Delaware's in the house. Okay. And I came from a revolutionary background. I came when Malcolm, Martin, Stokey, Huey Newton, Click, Slick, all of them were together. But what they had in common was plan. And we sit up here and we don't have a plan. We can come together in the NAACP, but we don't bring the preachers. We don't bring the second world. You know the second world I want to talk about. The guys hanging on the corner, the ones in the park, the ones there, the one there. We don't get together on Saturdays and say, we all gonna go up there. And we all gonna bring them in. That's right. Okay, we need a revolution. No movement. We need a movement, and we need not to leave nobody out. Even the Uncle Tom, it was a thing called the Uncle Tom cat. Okay, and that's what you're dealing with now. But Uncle Tom used to bring us information. Yeah, that's right. The Phil Nigger information. And then we used to know how to react. Okay, but we forgot all about that because we went to the 21st, 22nd century. Hey, let's go with our ancestors, Martin, who looked down on us and say, let's get us together. The Delaware gonna work with New Jersey. New Jersey gonna work with New York. New York gonna work with Connecticut. And we all gonna come together. We're gonna go out and bring all the folks in. Because that's what we need to do.
Thank you very much.
Grassroots organizations. We are mobilized because we have kind of a goal in it was almost easy to get people to come out to vote. We saw something. But from the day after Obama was elected, we almost thought, it's over. We did it.
We relaxed.
And we stopped. And when they've been beating up our president, we didn't say anything. And we didn't do anything. And so now, we got to rev the machine up again. And we would have been much further on if we never took our foot off the pedal. We had to keep going. So we almost, I don't know if we thought it out right, but we almost thought, well, we're here now. Racism is over. I don't know if we thought it out right, but we sure acted like it.
That's the whole post-racial.
We sure acted like it. So now we have to reconnect and start that engine again, because if we want to beat back those who are showing more racism than they've ever showed in our lives, then we're going to have to really get started.
All right, 2 more questions, and we're going to end this segment.
This is a follow-up to the second Keith Martin President, Morris County NACP. And the governor of New Jersey is a resident of Morris County. That's the key question. Senator Wright, a follow-up to the brother from Philadelphia on the second Reconstruction. Woodrow Wilson, a governor of New Jersey and a president, had the first reunion of the Union Army right after the following days of the first Reconstruction. He did not invite any of the black Union Army retired men. He did not invite him. This governor, who lives in Morris County, does not meet with the leadership of the New Jersey NAACP. And we need to address that, Senator Rice, and the Black Convention. And the New Jersey State Conference is now addressing it. We're keeping book on the governor, and Morris County is going to be taking the lead. Senator Rice, it's time for a resolution from the state saying there's something wrong here.
Staten Island, from the New York State Conference, and an officer, and a 36-year retired teacher. And one of the things in this post-racial, what you call it, post-racial, and I'm looking around the room, and I see all of us, but we need to also get the young people here. That's important, because if we can work and bring our young people to understand what is going on right now in this country, put down that Facebook, hang up those iPhones, stop all that tweeting, because you've got to understand what is happening. And in Staten Island, we are definitely, my president's right there, Mr. Josie. Okay, but what I said, we need to get the young people there and on board with us.
And our last, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
Bob, I have to say this.
Just 1 second.
Bob, we are so busy getting our children in Jack and Jill that we forgot that we have youth chapters for the NAACP.
Emiliano Lemos, Morris County. The question here is, after Obama, what? Yeah? After Obama, what we will be doing? What will NAACP will be doing? And I will be referring to the brother. Yeah? After we see 3 killings of our brothers, 2 in New Brunswick, 1 in Garfield. Yeah? All Afro-Americans or Latinos.
Yes.
Yeah? After we see it, the police officer stopping us just for the color of our skin. Yeah? And we are still thinking that it's a post-racial era? No way, Jose.
This is working, I think, real well. you're not sitting in the audience just listening, you're participating, and that's important. Reverend, actually, you want to, before we move on to the next topic?
One of the things, when I can perform like this, I want to leave feeling we've been serious, but I want to point out right here in Essex County, we had a leader of the Democratic Party, and I'll call him name, Joe Vecchio, on tape. East Ward Democratic leader referred to blacks as shaman. And my concern is there has not been one single solitary black elected official who's called or demanded his resignation. If it was a Republican, we would have screamed and hollered. Racism comes with Democrats and Republicans, and I'm still waiting. If we're serious about dealing with racism, then we ought to demand that he resign and the Democratic Party hold him accountable.
All right, let me just,
Thank you. Pastor, I was taught never to refute the word of a pastor, but I need to tell you that there are 3 members. Now, remember, the Star Liar does not print what we send to them. That's another issue about boycotting. So, I need to tell you, sitting in this room right now, oh, I forget. Sitting in this room right now, we have Council President Donald Payne, we have Councilman Ron Rice, and Councilman Darren Sharif called him out publicly, asked for his resignation, and the problem was not with us. It was with the powers that make the decision about whether he stays there. So, I just
May
wanted
I
to...
remind you that the chairman of the Essex County Democratic Committee looks like us.
I agree with you,
And so therefore,
and I'm saying nothing. I'm just defending the council.
all right, we're going to go on. All right, we're going to go on. We're going to change topics, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just, before we change, say this to you. Normally in an election year, a presidential election year, you have a convention that happens. The Democrats hold their convention in July, and the Republicans hold their convention in August. And that would leave both parties with about 2 or 3 months to really campaign. The problem with it now, all right, is that this is not a surefire winner for our good president at this point in time. Let me tell you why. The Republicans now have designated Mitt Romney as their presumptive candidate. So that means what? 7 months instead of 2 months for them to campaign and to try to take Barack down. Whereas normally you would only have 2 months. The Republicans have pledged almost $500 million in special PAC money to defeat this president. And that's because of the Supreme Court, or as Bob Slade likes to say, the Supreme Con decision a year and a half ago, Citizens United, that created these corporate PACs that could devote millions of dollars. And millionaires in this country have already said they're committed to taking Barack out. We do not, ladies and gentlemen, live in a post-racial society. Race is still a big factor here.
Yes, yes.
And race is a big factor in Florida. Stanford, Florida. That's the next subject. Ladies and gentlemen on the panel, tell me about Trayvon Martin and all the other kids that look like and react and respond like Trayvon Martin. What are we going to do in the face of his murder and the upcoming trial of the gentleman who's been accused of the murder, George Zimmerman? So let's start this side. Senator Rice.
First of all, what are we going to do? To think that the community... What are we going to do? I think the first step was taken. I think we would keep that step where people start to show their support, not knowing all the facts, but their support for justice and what's right. And a lot of questions and things are coming out. And that's been throughout the nation, whether it's in government, whether it's been in athletics, whether it's been on the streets. That's one thing. The other things we need to pay attention and take advantage of a bad situation, because it's unfortunately that this occurred there. But our black brothers and sisters are being gunned down the streets, whether it's by the authorities or by each other on a daily basis. And that's why I said we got to be called out as black elected officials, not just those who are elected, but those of us in leadership, with clergy and anyone else. There is no movement in this country against those types of injustice. We're going state by state, community by community. And that's why we're losing this battle. It is well organized by multi-billion-dollar people. I can document that. That's why there are people here that won't debate me. They'll say things over there but won't get with me and spend hours for debating. And so what we have to do is start from the NAACP perspective, is not only the things you're doing, paying attention, getting down there, and as Reverend Brock has done, made a real serious issue out of where people started to respond, like the hanging those guys. But we need to come together and figure out how we're going to start to march on state houses, not about the incident in and of itself. That's going to take care of itself. But that we're tired of what's happening on the streets. Yes, we have some responsibilities. But I'm going to sit down by saying this. You know, just go back to the education piece. If we're going to talk about public schools working, forget about the other schools. Public schools working, then in New Jersey, as I continue to tell the governor, don't tell us we are failing. Don't tell us you're going to give us education transformation unless you're going to talk about vacant lots, unless you're going to talk about jobs the families don't have, unless you're going to talk about those social issues and elements that have to be plugged in there. You can't talk education academically in a vacuum. Well, it's the same thing. We're not talking about criminal justice as a movement, or whether it's prevention or anything else. We don't have funds to even do the reentry. We're blowing the money. There's selective investigation, if you will, on corruption in this state. So I suspect the same things in other states. Therefore, black folks are being harmed because of those relationships as well. And so we're going to have to say, hold it. We're going to monitor this. And if there's injustice, we're going to hold people accountable. But we can't let it go because that's going to be another one later. We can't let it go because Crips and Bloods are killing each other. So we've got to take this from a criminal justice perspective, connect it to the healthcare perspective, and take it to the housing, the jobs, and everything else. We got to take a holistic approach to avoid those things in the future.
No doubt about it. Mildred, by the way, I think a lot of folks were very pleased that the NAACP national and locals got involved on that issue.
I was going to say that too. But I don't know how the rest of you felt when you got the news that George Zimmerman, is his name George? Yeah, George. I want to forget it. How that George Zimmerman was going to be released on a $150,000 bond. I was thoroughly disgusted beyond description. Had it been somebody who looked like you and me, guess what? It would have been $1.5 million. They would have made it impossible for us to get out of jail. And so tomorrow he walks out, I won't say a free man, but at least free from the confines of a jail cell. And we need to be, where's the young lady who said don't tweet, don't whatever. I'm not a tweeter, but those people who do, we need to do the social media thing. That's one thing. We need to tweet back and say, have you lost your ever-loving mind? And call them out for the racist the judge for the racist that he is for granting such a small amount. The NAACP, you all need to continue to agitate. And I'm so happy that you did come out publicly. And the names that they call us, so what? We need to, I shouldn't say we all need to join in the agitation of it. And finally, guess what? We need to send them some money. I'm going to say that again. We need to send them some money. Those white people all over this country, NRA, are sending money down to help this man's defense.
They are.
How many of us have sent $10 down to help the Trayvon family? That's one person, and that 2 people. So 2 people out of what? 3, 4 people. Oh, Reverend, bless your heart. I see a couple clergy. So the rest of us need to find out, how do we send money? There's an old expression, it's money talks. And so we need to go into our pockets and help this family in their defense of this heinous crime. That's my solution. Those are my solutions.
When I saw in the paper that this had happened, I looked at the date on the paper, and I started watching the news even more about it. And I noticed it took a whole month before we heard anything in the public media about it, less than only in the newspaper. It took a whole month. The baby, I call him a baby because, see, I have 3 sons. I was born and raised in Lancaster, South Carolina. Okay? With my sons, I worried day and night while they were in college. I mean, I was sweating every time the phone would ring at night. Because I remember when my mother would say and tell us things about, we had to send my older brother up to Washington, D.C. because they were afraid he wasn't going to do the right thing when it was time to walk to the down Main Street to go to the movie theater and go upstairs, because he was a little, Ron Rice, he was a little Ron Rice. He spoke his mind. You know, he couldn't understand why in the town that my father was a barber in, that we were okay family, that he had to be submissive to anyone. So they sent him away to Washington, D.C. Okay? So to hear about this baby being shot, because there's a law there that tells them that they think it's okay to do that. Now, not only do we have to be outraged, but we need to do something about that law. Okay? We need to do something about that law. And we need to help the family with the defense. And to hear that Zimmerman is going to be possibly allowed to leave the state for his safety with a GPS on him and having to call in to let people know he's all right, bothers me. I don't know about you, but it bothers me.
It's highly, let me say this, it's highly unusual to allow a criminal defendant to go out of state. It is highly unusual. I'm not surprised though by the bail. In fact, I predicted on last week's show, I predicted that the bail would be $100,000. I'm not surprised. I'm surprised that the judge is allowing him to leave the state, irregardless of his safety issues.
In the interest of time, let me not repeat anything that the others have said, because I think they're right on. First of all, justice definitely has to prevail. No question about it. So I don't want to repeat anything I've said, but let me just add to what they have said. First of all, I think that it is important, again, that we give some credit to major organizations who came together and worked together to shed that light.
The NAACP.
The NAACP.
National Action
Network, all over the country, Urban League. I mean, everybody came together. If we came together like that, all the time, to address anything else, it's over. Let me say that one. Secondly, let me say this. Until we respect ourselves, it's hard for us to demand respect from others.
Let's stick on that point, if I can just have a dialogue with you on that.
Until we value our own blood. Why is our blood more precious when it's brought down by white than it is when it is brought down by black?
I'm going to engage in a little bit of a dialogue here. You know,
This must have struck a chord. You know you're ready.
it is one of the things that we always strike on the radio, is that black folks' memory and their reaction to these kinds of incidents, episodic.
Yes.
Folks expect us to be angry for 3 months.
Yes.
And we forget about it. And it's over.
And we do.
And we do. Unfortunately, we do.
Yes.
But here's my question to you. How come when white folks do something to us, we get outraged, the cops or whoever? But when we do things to each other, we don't get outraged. And
to devalue ourselves in too many instances. In too many instances, we devalue ourselves to the extent that somebody else's ice is always colder than ours.
You sound like him too, man. Go ahead.
All right? And let me just say, and I'm not going to take, let me just say this. The impact of tonight's meeting is not for us to be clapping and being emotional and all of that. The impact of tonight's meeting cannot be measured by how many people were here, how we felt when we left, because we can feel good while we're here. You know, black folks like to feel good. And if they feel good, they seem to think that's a criteria for success. The criteria for success is what we do when we leave here and how we execute this. Right? And the final thing I want to say is this. We have to learn to treat root causes and not symptoms.
That's right.
We get distracted by symptoms. Violence in the street is a symptom. The stuff we see happening is a symptom. The root cause is that we need to go back into the home and we need to focus on our young people and we need to help them understand what excellence is. As much as I understand that we're not living in a post-racial society, we also need to teach them that you ain't gonna get nowhere in life unless you strive to do the best you can so that you can compete, and you can't always put it on your race. You have to be prepared so that you can compete in a global society. That is not to say that race is not an issue, Bob, but it is to say that we can't let anybody off the hook in thinking that just because you're black, you want to be able to get ahead. Should we address racism? Yes. But we also need to tell them, come on, honey, you got to make that A, and you got to be better than that next person if you expect to make it in life.
Can we get an amen on that?
Those of us, kids are kids, and everything we do in life is a learned behavior unless you have a disability. And those of us who are adults help our people at the younger generation devalue themselves. And when you get a governor come into Newark and say, I was born here, I lived here till I was 5, and my parents bought $1,000 each to move out. Had I stayed here in Newark, in this education system, I couldn't be governor. But that's offensive. And I said something about it, the president mentioned it. I'm a state senator, I'm just not the governor, I never ran for governor, okay? Still all of us the speaker. And so I have a real problem. When we talk about devalue, it goes beyond it. I do believe in causation, but I also believe in something else. I may not get this in. I've been listening to people up here more so than out there. And the thing is that, yes, we can agree and disagree on things. But the reality is that we agree and disagree because we don't communicate. And that's the reality. We need to meet. I don't have a problem with position people are taking. But we should be at the table saying, look, I think you're wrong, I think you're right for these reasons. So we can start to identify the impact we're going to have and what we can do collectively to make things right. That's where the fight started. And then when Eli Brown and all these hedge fund people start buying us after we done got weak, you're never going to give these systems, these young people any value because they see us as a bunch of corrupt people just giving them a bunch of crap.
I came in while the NAACP chair was speaking. Yes. And so I do think we need to give some props to New Jersey. I want to thank the Black Legislative Caucus. I want to thank the NAACP. I want to thank the minister because New Jersey today is the only state in the nation that has a law that says the racial profile ain't in the crime. I heard what was said about some other states, but New Jersey was also the first state to repeal the death penalty. So I think New Jersey ought to give itself a on Trayvon Martin, let me just say this. I want us to be clear. I've been struck by those who are wearing the hoodies and all, but one of the things we need to be clear about. Trayvon Martin was not shot because he had on a hoodie.
Hallelujah.
Trayvon Martin was shot because he was black. Trayvon Martin had on something he couldn't take off. And that was the the color of his skin. Let me also say, I think it's critically important, and one of the lessons we need to teach our children, it is no coincidence that since the late 1960s, I believe in this country, there's been an effort to undermine the black community. And you want to undermine a people, you do it through their men. So I don't think it's coincidence that during the Vietnam War, black men were drafted at 3 times the rate of whites. There's no coincidence that after that, the #1 business in our community became the open-air drug market targeted towards black men. It's no coincidence that black men, in terms of education, are getting less quality education than anybody else, which is why among black men, unemployment is 30%. It's no coincidence that over 50% of those in prison are black men. And so therefore, our sisters are having trouble getting a brother because they're either in prison, on probation, or in the cemetery. So I think we've got to do a job of educating particularly our young black males. And I close by saying we've also got to be very clear. You know, parents have got to stop being afraid of the children we're supposed to be raising. That we do not allow our young black men to live down to the stereotypes we made for them.
Okay, there's one more coincidence, if I can share with you. It's no coincidence that President Clinton changed the law about cocaine, made it crack more, penalize people for crack and cocaine. Yes, we use crack a lot. That's why the jails are the way they are. And that's why we are. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm told that we're coming up on a final break here. I want to say on behalf of the panelists, everybody here, we want to thank you for your participation. I hope you found this to be of interest. I think we need to try to do this again. Everybody out here who has participated in this evening's program, and I'm honored to be here. I'm going to shout all you guys out on Sunday.
And it's going to be extremely important that we choose his successor based on values, experience, and commitment to civil rights. The opportunity will be afforded to New Jersey in May. You are, is it June? June. And you may not have realized it, but at least 4 of the candidates seeking to replace Donald Payne was here tonight. That's how important the NAACP is. And they're still here. Okay? May 14th, the Newark branch of the NAACP will give the community a chance to hear all of the candidates. The 4 who are announced: Donald Payne Jr., Ronald Rice Jr., Wayne Smith, who is the mayor and who was here from Irvington, and who is the, Senator Nia Gill from the 34th Legislative District. Now I think there's one other candidate, Kathy Wright, and you're a candidate for the Congress? All right, they're all in the room.
Hey, James, let me say this to everybody. I'm going to poll on you guys. All the candidates, we're going to have them on the air the week before the election. So I'm looking forward to having you guys in the studio live. We're going to do it because it's an important position. Your father was a great man, right? Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Payne, and I think we need to applaud him for his efforts over the last 6 years. We're going to have all the candidates in studio talking about this important election. All right, that's all I'm going to say.
In closing, I want you to know that we also have with us tonight that representatives from that organization that the NAACP has a court order with. We are unhappy with this organization, but we do have representatives here from the New Jersey State Police. They are now actively recruiting African American candidates so that the next class will have more than 2 African Americans in the state of New Jersey. So Captain Gerald Lewis, please wave. Thank you. Captain Lewis, thank you for being here. And as I said in the press, we're going to help you recruit, but we're more concerned about who walks across that stage and get those uniforms on at the end of the process. Now we're going to ask that you go back to the bus. The bus is going to take you back to the hotel. We are asking that you be at the breakfast, the labor breakfast tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. But we're also have the hospitality suite open in suite 1240 back at the hotel. Thank you very much. And Reverend Branch, thank you for your hospitality. And have a and folks, you know that the NAACP never leaves going anywhere without prayer. So I'm going to call AME Church and a candidate for, are you candidate? A candidate for bishop. Let's join hands, connect hands where we can.
Our Father and our God, we thank you for these moments together. We thank you for what our ears have heard and for what our eyes have seen. We thank you for this Northeast region and its leadership. We thank you for the NAACP, what it has done, what it is doing, what it will do. Now, Lord, we pray that you would grant unto us fresh courage for the living and for the facing of these days. Now, blessed be the tie that binds. Strengthen us for the struggle. Now, dismiss us from this place, but never, ever from your presence. In the name of our risen, ruling, and reigning Christ, we ask it all. Amen.